I had just set the kettle down on the stove when the phone rang. That old landline, its shrill cry cutting through the quiet morning like a knife. My hands were damp from rinsing dishes, the scent of coffee grounds still clinging to the air. I reached for the receiver, expecting a telemarketer, or maybe Loretta calling to remind me about Bible study. Instead, I heard my son's voice. David. His tone was bright at first, the way it always was when he called me between flights. But then, before I could ask how he was doing, his words changed my world. "Mum," he whispered, "something strange is happening." Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. His next sentence froze me where I stood, dish towel still in my hand. "Vanessa is here. She's at the house with you, isn't she?" I glanced toward the staircase where the sound of running water came faintly from above. I had just heard her voice minutes earlier, calling down that she was about to shower. "Yes, of course," I said. "She's upstairs right now." David's voice dropped low, full of disbelief. "That's impossible." "Mum, I'm looking at her passport right now. She just boarded my flight to Paris. She's sitting in first class, and she isn't alone." The receiver grew slick in my hand as the words sank in. Upstairs, the water stopped. Then I heard the creak of the bathroom door. "Mum?" Vanessa's soft voice floated down, casual, warm, exactly as it always had been. "Who's on the phone?" And just like that, I felt the ground shift beneath me. I want to tell you I brushed it off. That I laughed. Told myself David must have been mistaken. That fatigue or some mix-up at the gate had made him think he saw his sister-in-law. But even as I hung up and forced my voice steady, unease seeped through me like water through old wood. Because I had seen Vanessa that morning. I had touched her hand when she passed me a plate. I had watched her smooth Naomi's braids before school, humming under her breath. There was no mistaking her. Yet David wasn't the type to confuse faces, not when it came to family. And his voice, low, tight with certainty, wasn't the voice of a man guessing. I sat down hard at the kitchen table, staring at the faded placemats. My late husband's photograph stared back from the mantel, his quiet eyes reminding me of the promises I had made to keep this family safe, to hold us together even in the years since cancer had taken him. But how do you hold a family together when the threads themselves begin to twist? Vanessa came down a few minutes later, fresh from her shower, wrapped in that pale blue house robe she favored. She smiled like nothing was wrong, asking if I wanted her to pick up tomatoes on her way to the market. I nodded, too quickly. My throat felt dry as ash. She kissed my cheek, soft as ever, and left with her wicker basket swinging at her side. Through the lace curtains, I watched her walk down the street until she disappeared behind the gate. My hands still trembled as I lowered myself into the old armchair by the window. I could hear the clock ticking, loud and insistent, as if the whole house was holding its breath with me. If she was here, then who was with David? And if she was with David, who had just stood in my kitchen? The questions twisted through me like vines tightening around an old tree trunk. And though I told myself to let it go, I knew in that moment that my days of peaceful ignorance were over. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, the sheets heavy on my chest, listening to the faint hum of the ceiling fan. My mind returned again and again to David's voice. "She's on my flight right now. I'm looking at her. She isn't alone." Beside the bed, Naomi's school picture smiled up at me from its frame. Her gap-toothed grin, her little hand clutching the teddy bear I had sewn years ago. She was only 8, too young to notice the subtle shifts in her mother's eyes, the way her laugh sometimes rang hollow. Or maybe not. Children see more than we think. The thought sent a chill crawling up my spine. By morning, I had convinced myself I needed evidence. Something more than my son's call and my trembling suspicion. I would watch. I would listen. I would take note of every inconsistency, every strange slip of hand or word. Because if Vanessa was truly living two lives, then one of them would eventually crack. And when it did, I would be ready. I pulled out an old leather-bound notebook from the drawer, one my husband once used for grocery lists and sermon notes. On the first page, I wrote in shaky letters, "Tuesday morning, Vanessa at home." David claims Vanessa boarded flight to Paris. I stared at the words until the ink bled into my vision. Then I closed the book and pressed it to my chest, whispering to myself, "Lord, give me strength." For what I was about to uncover, I had the sinking feeling it would change everything. The next morning felt heavier than most. I sat at the kitchen table with my cup of chicory coffee, staring at the rising steam as though it held answers. My body was in Phoenix, in my little house with its worn-out linoleum and faded curtains, but my mind kept circling that impossible phone call. David wasn't a man to play tricks. Lord knows, flying for a living had drilled precision into him. Times, faces, names. And he'd sounded so certain, so shaken. "She's sitting in first class, Mum. She isn't alone." Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. I stirred my coffee absent-mindedly. Upstairs, I heard Naomi's voice, light and sweet, humming as she got dressed for school. A moment later, Vanessa's footsteps followed, calm and steady. I watched her come down the stairs in a cream blouse, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked the same as always. Warm smile, soft voice, carrying Naomi's lunchbox with careful hands. "Morning, Mum," she said, leaning down to kiss my cheek. It was the same greeting she'd given me every morning for years. And yet, for the first time, I caught myself studying her. The way her eyes shifted ever so slightly when she smiled, how her left hand lingered longer on the banister than it should. She looked real. She felt real. And still, doubt gnawed at me. After Naomi left for school and Marcus hurried off to his architecture office, the house grew quiet. Vanessa stayed behind, folding laundry on the sofa. Her hands moved gracefully, smoothing each shirt as though she had all the time in the world. "Do you need anything from the market today?" she asked casually. My throat tightened. That same phrase again. Always the market, always errands, always somewhere to go. I forced a smile. "Just some onions, honey. If it's no trouble." She nodded, still folding. "Not at all." But I noticed something that made my stomach turn. She was folding with her left hand guiding the fabric. For as long as I had known her, Vanessa had been right-handed. She cut vegetables with her right, signed Naomi's permission slips with her right. Yet here she was, folding with her left, as if it had always been natural. I said nothing. I only wrote it down later in my notebook. Wednesday, Vanessa folded laundry with left hand. The words stared back at me like an accusation. That afternoon, Loretta dropped by. She wore her usual wide-brimmed hat and carried a basket of peaches from the farmer's stand. Her laugh filled the kitchen like it always did, bold and unapologetic. But when Vanessa excused herself to take a call in the other room, Loretta leaned across the table, lowering her voice. "Gloria, baby, don't get mad at me," she said. "But something's been off with that daughter-in-law of yours." My breath caught. What do you mean? Loretta's eyes sharpened. Yesterday, I saw her near the bus stop, just standing there looking different, cold, like she didn't even know me. I waved, and she turned her face away. Then later that evening, she came by my porch smiling, like nothing happened. Same outfit, same day. You tell me how that makes sense? I gripped my coffee cup, my knuckles white. She's been under stress, I whispered. Marcus's long hours, raising Naomi. Maybe she's just tired? Loretta shook her head firmly. No, Gloria. I've known that girl since Marcus brought her round the first time. Something's changed, and you better not ignore it. Her words cut me, because they echoed the storm already churning in my own heart. When Vanessa came back into the room, her phone call finished, she carried herself with the same soft grace. She asked if Loretta wanted pie, and her smile was so warm that for a split second, I wondered if I really had imagined everything. But Loretta's sharp glance at me told me otherwise. That night, while Marcus read through his blueprints and Naomi colored quietly at the table, I watched Vanessa serve dinner. She moved easily, setting plates, pouring water, laughing at Naomi's little jokes. Then Naomi looked up, her child's eyes bright. Grandma, guess what? Yesterday, Mama helped me with my homework, and her handwriting was so pretty. But today, she wrote with her other hand, and it looked all funny, like a stranger wrote it. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Vanessa chuckled lightly, brushing Naomi's cheek. Oh, sweetheart, Mama was just tired. Don't worry about that. But I couldn't shake the way her eyes flickered, just for an instant, as if Naomi had uncovered more than she should. After dinner, when everyone had gone upstairs, I sat alone at the table. The clock ticked loudly in the silence. I opened my notebook again and wrote, Vanessa's handwriting inconsistent. Naomi noticed. Loretta confirmed strange behavior. The page trembled beneath my hand. I closed the book slowly, whispering into the empty room. Lord, what is happening in my house? And though no answer came, I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't ignore the shadows any longer. The sun had barely risen when I stepped out into the yard with my watering can. The garden was my husband's pride once. A small patch of earth filled with daisies, collards, and roses that never bloomed quite right in the Arizona heat. Now it was mine to tend, though my knees ached and my back stiffened with every bend. As I poured water over the daisies, I thought of David again. His voice, low and strained. She's on my flight, Mum. She isn't alone. The words would not let me rest. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. I straightened, pressing a hand against the small of my back when the gate creaked open. Morning, Gloria. It was Mrs. Ellis, my neighbour of more than 30 years. She carried a basket of warm cornbread, her silver hair tied in a scarf. I'd known that woman longer than I'd known Vanessa, and she never came empty-handed. I invited her in, but before she even stepped past the threshold, her eyes narrowed slightly. Your Vanessa brought me a plate last night, she said, but something struck me as strange. I froze. Strange how? She handed it to me with her left hand. And you know as well as I do that girl's a righty. Always has been. Even bragged once about her penmanship in school. But last night, Mrs. Ellis shook her head. She looked different. Like she was trying on someone else's skin. The watering can slipped in my hand, water splashing onto the ground. I forced a smile. Maybe she was just tired, Helen. You know how it is. But inside, a cold weight sank deeper. It wasn't just me seeing it. Others had begun to notice too. Later that afternoon, I went to the market for bread. Mr. Johnson, who had run the bakery since his daddy's time, leaned over the counter and lowered his voice. "Mrs. Jefferson, I hope you don't take this wrong. Your daughter-in-law. She came by this morning looking real sour. Didn't say a word. But just yesterday she was laughing, asking me about my wife's arthritis. Same woman, two different faces. I thought maybe you'd want to know I thanked him," my voice tight, and hurried out with the loaf clutched against my chest. On the walk home, the voices of Mrs. Ellis and Mr. Johnson rattled inside me. Their words matched Loretta's, matched David's, matched Naomi's innocent observations. Each one was a brick in the wall, closing around me. That evening, I sat by the window as the sun bled into the horizon. Vanessa returned from her errands, her wicker basket swinging, her blouse freshly pressed. "Good afternoon, Mum," she said, her smile polite but not warm. "I got everything for supper." Her tone was dry, clipped. Not the Vanessa from yesterday, the one who hummed while braiding Naomi's hair. "Why the change of blouse?" I asked softly. "You left in white this morning. Now you're in blue." For a fraction of a second, she hesitated. Then she laughed lightly. "Oh, I spilled juice on it at the market. Had to change." She brushed past me, setting the basket on the table. But that pause, that flicker of unease, lodged itself in my mind like a thorn. That night, after the dishes were cleared and the house had gone quiet, I pulled out my notebook again. My hand trembled as I wrote, "Thursday, Mrs. Ellis noticed Vanessa using left hand. Mr. Johnson observed personality shift, changed blouse midday, voice colder." The page filled with my shaky script. Each line felt like a betrayal carved into paper. I closed the notebook and held it against my chest, whispering, "Lord, I don't know what's happening, but I will not let my family drown in secrets." The next day, Naomi came bouncing home from school, her backpack rattling with crayons and papers. She ran straight into my arms, her breath warm against my cheek. "Grandma," she said, "Mama was funny today. She forgot the song she sang me yesterday, the one you always sing, Cielito Lindo. Yesterday it was so pretty. But today she looked at me like she never heard of it." My heart sank. That lullaby, I'd sung it to Marcus and David when they were small, and only Vanessa and I knew it in this house. If she had forgotten it, then who was the woman singing yesterday? That evening, Loretta stopped by again. She didn't bother with pleasantries, just took one look at my face and said, "It's getting worse, isn't it?" I led her into the kitchen, poured coffee, and slid my notebook across the table. She read silently, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Gloria," she whispered finally, "this ain't just nerves. You're being played. That woman, whoever she is, she's hiding something. And if you don't dig deeper, your whole family's going to pay for it." Her words made my stomach twist, because I knew she was right. And yet, staring at the quiet house, hearing Naomi's laughter float from upstairs, I thought of Marcus. Hard-working, weary, trusting. What would this truth do to him? I folded my hands, whispering, "Do I destroy his peace to save him from the storm? Or do I stay silent and let the storm swallow us all?" The choice felt impossible. The night was quiet, too quiet for a house that had once pulsed with laughter and warmth. I sat at the kitchen table, the overhead light humming faintly, casting a circle of gold against the shadows. My old notebook lay open before me, its pages trembling beneath the weight of my hand. I had begun with a single entry, David's impossible phone call, but now the book was filling, line after shaky line, dates, times, behaviors, Vanessa's handwriting changing, her left hand where her right should have been. A blouse that seemed to change midday, neighbours whispering of mood swings, Naomi's innocent confusion over a lullaby. The words stared back at me, black ink on yellowed paper, but they felt alive, like small nails driven into the coffin of the life I thought I knew. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. I pressed my palm flat over the page, whispering, "Lord, let me be wrong. Please let me be wrong." But the silence answered me back. The next morning, I carried the notebook with me like an anchor. While Naomi ate her cereal, swinging her little legs under the chair, I scribbled quietly at the table. She looked up once, her big brown eyes curious. "Grandma, why are you writing so much?" I forced a smile. "Just keeping notes for myself, baby. Helps me remember things." She nodded and went back to her cereal, unconcerned. Children didn't know how heavy truth could be. Vanessa floated into the kitchen, her hair perfectly styled, her smile warm enough to light a room. She kissed Naomi's head and asked if she'd finished her homework. For anyone else, she looked like the perfect mother. But I noticed how her right hand stayed tucked at her side as she poured juice with her left. And when Naomi chattered about singing in music class, Vanessa's laugh came a second too late, brittle at the edges. I wrote it all down. That afternoon, when the house had settled again, Loretta stopped by. She saw the notebook open on the table and raised her brow. "So you're finally doing it," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "About time." I sighed. It feels like betrayal, writing these things about. Her Loretta's gaze was sharp, unflinching. "Betrayal is what she's doing, Gloria. You're just opening your eyes." I closed the book slowly, my fingers trembling. What if Marcus finds it? What if Naomi sees? How do I explain it? "You'll explain it when you have the truth," Loretta replied firmly. "And until then, you keep your notes safe. That notebook might end up saving your family." Her words settled deep inside me. I realized then that the notebook wasn't just paper and ink. It was my weapon, my shield, my lifeline. Days blurred into one another, each carrying its own strange contradiction. On Monday, Vanessa returned from the store humming gospel hymns under her breath, her voice gentle. On Tuesday, she snapped at Naomi for spilling milk, her eyes sharp as knives. On Wednesday, she wrote Marcus a list with elegant loops and tidy lines. On Thursday, she jotted down Naomi's spelling words with jagged, crooked letters. On Friday, she left the house with her wicker basket at 3 p.m., wearing a yellow dress. I watched her turn down the usual path toward the market. But when she returned near 6 p.m., she wore a navy blouse, carried a different basket, and her eyes darted toward me as if checking whether I'd noticed. I wrote it all down. Every detail, every flicker, every inconsistency. The more I wrote, the heavier the air in the house became. Marcus seemed oblivious, buried in his work. Naomi, sweet child, only asked innocent questions. "Why does Mama act funny some days? Why doesn't Mama hug me like yesterday?" But I felt the tension pressing against my chest, thick and suffocating. Some nights I dreamed of two Vanessas, one soft and loving, one cold and sharp, circling the house like shadows that slipped through locked doors. I would wake drenched in sweat, the notebook pressed against my chest as though it could ward them off. Then came the day I couldn't hold my tongue. Vanessa was at the sink, washing dishes. I stood in the doorway, the notebook heavy in my apron pocket. "You've been going to the market a lot lately," I said carefully. She glanced at me, her smile quick and easy. Yes, Mom. Fresh food is best, isn't it? Of course, I said slowly, but you've been changing baskets. Clothes. Even hands. For a heartbeat, her expression faltered. Then her smile returned, brighter than before. Oh, Mom, you're paying too much attention. You know how it is. Women change things up sometimes. Her tone was light, but her eyes were cold. I didn't press further. But when she left the room, I pulled the notebook from my pocket and added a line in shaky script. She knows I'm watching. That night, as I sat alone, the notebook open before me, I realized the truth. I wasn't just collecting suspicions. I was preparing for war. Because whatever Vanessa was hiding, it was no small secret. And the day would come when my notes would be the only proof I had left. The sky was heavy with late afternoon sun, the kind that makes the air shimmer and the cicadas sing louder than the church choir. I sat on the porch with my notebook tucked beneath my shawl, pretending to sew, though my hands shook too much for the needle to thread. Vanessa had just stepped out of the house, basket in hand, her voice floating back as soft as always. Mum, I'm running to the market. Don't wait up for me. It was the same excuse she had given me nearly every day that week. But markets didn't last till nightfall, and I was tired of hearing the same song with different verses. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. The moment the gate shut behind her, I set down my sewing and rose, heart pounding against my ribs. I slipped on my old shawl, the one with frayed edges, and pulled it tight around my head. If Vanessa turned and saw me, I could pass as any neighbour woman out for a walk. But I knew the truth. I wasn't walking. I was hunting. The cobblestone street stretched before me, hot under my shoes. I kept my distance, about half a block, my eyes fixed on the familiar sway of Vanessa's blue skirt and the wicker basket at her side. She didn't look back once. When she reached the crossroads, I braced myself for her usual right turn toward the market stalls. Instead, she went left, down an alley I had never seen her enter before. My breath caught. The houses lining that alley were older, their paint peeling, roofs sagging under rusted tin. Children darted barefoot between puddles, their laughter echoing off the cracked walls. A man sat outside a mechanic's shop, tightening bolts, the sharp clang of metal filling the air. I slowed, ducking behind a row of bicycles leaning against a fence. Vanessa walked quickly, head down, shoulders tense, until she stopped before a narrow wooden door. She knocked once, glanced around, and slipped inside. The door closed. Silence swallowed the alley. I stood frozen, my knees trembling. My daughter-in-law, the woman I had trusted with my son's heart and my granddaughter's childhood, had just walked into a stranger's house as though she belonged there. I wanted to march across the street, pound on that door, and demand answers. But fear rooted me in place. Fear of what I might find. Fear of shattering what little peace our family still had. So I turned back, my shawl heavy on my shoulders, and walked home with the weight of 100 stones pressing into my chest. When I pushed open the gate, I nearly dropped where I stood. Vanessa was in the kitchen. She was chopping onions in a clean white blouse, her hair tied differently than before. Her expression was calm, even curious. "Where did you wander off to, Mum?" "You're just getting back." For a moment, my mouth went dry. Just 30 minutes ago, I had watched her slip into that old house in the alley. How could she have returned so quickly? How could she have changed her clothes? "I just took a little walk," I stammered, forcing a weak smile. She nodded, returned to her chopping, and said nothing more. But when her eyes flicked up at me, sharp and cold, a chill crawled down my spine. I retreated to my room, my heart hammering. That night, Naomi ran into my room, tears streaking her cheeks. "Grandma?" she sobbed. "Mama yelled at me just for dropping my pencil." Yesterday she hugged me when I made a mistake, but today she said I was clumsy. I held her against me, stroking her hair, my throat tight. "Don't you worry, baby. Grandma's here." But her words cut me deep. It was as though two women lived under our roof, one tender, one cruel. And I had just seen proof with my own eyes that there might truly be two. Later, when the house had gone quiet, I opened my notebook again. My pen scratched across the paper. Followed Vanessa to alley. Entered old wooden door, house unknown. Returned home within minutes, wearing different blouse. Impossible. I stared at the words until they blurred, until tears slid down my cheeks. I whispered into the dark, "Lord, I think I've lost my daughter-in-law. Or maybe I never knew her at all." Sleep abandoned me that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my heart echoing David's voice again and again. "She's on my flight, Mum. She isn't alone." The words tangled with Naomi's tears, with Loretta's warnings, with the image of Vanessa slipping into that wooden door like a shadow swallowed whole. By dawn, my decision was made. I couldn't live with half-truths anymore. If I wanted peace, I had to look the storm straight in its eyes. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. The alley was quiet when I returned the next morning, shawl drawn low over my face. The same cracked walls, the same rusted tin roofs, the same children chasing each other barefoot across the cobblestones. My heart hammered so loud I feared it might give me away. I clutched a family photograph in my hand. Marcus and Vanessa on their wedding day, Naomi cradled in their arms. Proof that this wasn't just my imagination. Proof that she was part of my life. A woman tending a corn stand looked up as I lingered by the corner. Her hands were dusty with ash from the small fire keeping her grill hot. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice trembling, showing her the photograph. "Have you seen this woman around here?" She squinted, wiped her hands on her apron and nodded. "Oh yes, she comes here often, always heading to number 14. My throat went dry as she pointed to the peeling wooden door at the far end of the alley, the same one Vanessa had entered yesterday. I forced my legs to carry me forward, though each step felt heavier than the last. The door loomed ahead, its paint chipped, its hinges rusted. I raised my hand, knocked once, then twice, each thud echoing like a drumbeat against my chest. The door creaked open, and I gasped. The woman standing before me was Vanessa. Her face, her hair, her very stance. But her eyes were wide with fear, not polished calm. She clutched a rag in her trembling hands. For a moment we simply stared at one another, my breath caught in my throat. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm not who you think I am." Before she could close the door, another voice came from inside. Calm, firm, a woman's voice. "Isadora, don't hide. She deserves the truth." The name struck me like lightning. Isadora. The second woman appeared from the shadows of the small room. She was younger, thin, her hair pulled into a bun, her eyes intelligent and steady. She gave me a small, respectful nod. "My name is Lucy Miller," she said. "I live here with her." "Please, come in." My knees shook as I stepped across the threshold. The air inside was heavy with disinfectant and poverty. An old man coughed weakly on a cot in the corner, a threadbare blanket pulled to his chin. The floor was cracked, the walls stained with years of neglect. The woman before me, the mirror of my daughter-in-law, lowered her head, voice trembling. "My name is Isadora. I'm not Vanessa." I gripped the edge of a wooden chair, trying to steady myself. My mind reeled. "Explain to me," I demanded, though my voice cracked. "Why do you look exactly like my daughter-in-law? Why do you walk in and out of my house?" Tears filled Isadora's eyes. She twisted the rag in her hands. "I never meant to deceive you, Mom. Vanessa found me. She said I could help her, that I could take her place sometimes. She gave me money, enough for medicine for my parents." She gestured toward the old man, coughing in the corner. I didn't ask questions. I just did what she asked. My chest tightened. "Take her place?" Isadora nodded miserably. "She told me to stay at your house sometimes. Go to the market, help with Naomi's homework, just enough so nobody would suspect when she needed to leave. She said it was harmless. She said no one would get hurt." Her voice broke, and she covered her face with the rag. I stood frozen, my mind spinning. Every inconsistency, every strange glance, every shift in handwriting, Naomi's confusion, Loretta's suspicions, Mrs. Ellis's whispers. They all made sense now. It wasn't just one woman slipping between moods. It was two. One sweet, one sharp, one motherly, one cold. Vanessa had been using Isadora as her double. But why? Lucy placed a hand gently on Isadora's shoulder, her voice steady. "Mrs. Jefferson, I know this is a shock. But Isadora is no villain. She's a girl trying to keep her family alive." Vanessa took advantage of that. I looked at Isadora again. The same face, the same features, but with fear in her eyes where Vanessa wore confidence. My anger softened, replaced by a sorrow so deep it burned. "What does Vanessa do when she leaves you to pretend?" I asked, my voice trembling. Isadora shook her head. "I don't know. She never told me. She only said it was none of my business. Once I saw her with a man, elegant, wealthy. They called each other Honey. His name was Raymond Cole. The name lodged like ice in my spine. I had never heard it before, and yet I knew it carried danger. I left the house trembling, the family photo still clutched in my hand. Outside, the sun was blinding, but my heart was heavy as stone. Vanessa was living a double life. She had entangled an innocent young woman in her lies, dragging my family into shadows I didn't yet understand. And somewhere, waiting in those shadows, was the name Raymond Cole. The days that followed my visit to the alley pressed down on me like a storm cloud that refused to move. I couldn't shake Isadora's trembling face, her eyes so much like Vanessa's, but stripped of polish and pride. And that name, Raymond Cole, clung to my thoughts like a burr you couldn't pull free. I told myself I should walk away, that I should burn the notebook, hold Naomi close, and protect Marcus from a truth that would cut him to the bone. But once you've looked behind the curtain, you can't go back to pretending. And I had seen too much. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. It was a Saturday morning when I decided to return to that house. My heart pounded as I stepped back into the alley, clutching the photograph tighter than scripture on a Sunday. Number 14 stood as worn as before, its peeling paint and crooked window mocking me for daring to come again. This time, when the door opened, Isadora didn't look as startled. She met my eyes with a mixture of guilt and relief, as though she'd been expecting me. "Mrs. Jefferson," she whispered, "please come in." Inside, The air was heavy again, with disinfectant and sickness. The old man on the cot wheezed in shallow breaths, his chest rising and falling with painful effort. But it wasn't him my eyes searched for. It was the truth. "Isadora," I began, my voice trembling but steady enough. "I need more than scraps of half-truths. Why you? Why would Vanessa pick you of all people to play her double?" She lowered her eyes, twisting her hands in her lap. "I've asked myself the same question, Ma'am. We met by chance years ago, at a market. She stared at me like she'd seen a ghost. Next thing I knew, she was offering me money if I'd pretend to be her sometimes. I didn't want to, but my parents needed medicine. So I agreed." Her words sliced through me, but it wasn't enough. Something deeper lingered behind her gaze. "Isadora," I pressed. "You look exactly like her." "That isn't chance. Tell me the rest." She hesitated. Then she pulled out a tattered envelope from an old dresser and placed it in my hands. "These are my adoption papers. I've never shown anyone, but maybe you'll understand." My hands shook as I unfolded the yellowed documents. At first, the words blurred. Then my breath caught. Birth date, identical to Vanessa's. Hospital, the very same one in Phoenix where Vanessa had been born. I looked up, my throat dry. You and Vanessa." Isadora's voice cracked. "We're twins." That's the only explanation. The world tilted beneath me. Twins. One raised in comfort, polished into the perfect daughter-in-law. The other abandoned, shuffled into poverty, forced to play a role she never asked for. I gripped the edge of the chair, the paper trembling in my hand. Lord, how many secrets can one family carry before it breaks? Lucy stepped forward, her steady eyes meeting mine. "Mrs. Jefferson?" I tried to stop this arrangement. I told Isadora no good would come from it, but she was desperate, and Vanessa knew how to pull the strings. I turned to Isadora, tears burning in my eyes. Why didn't she ever tell me? Why didn't Vanessa tell anyone she had a sister? Isadora shook her head, sobbing softly. I don't know. She never wanted me to speak. She just gave me tasks, told me when to show up, told me when to disappear. I thought maybe she was ashamed of me, or maybe she wanted to keep her world neat and pretty without me in it. Her words tore through me, because behind them, I recognized the truth. Vanessa hadn't just been hiding her affair. She'd been hiding blood, family, a sister cast aside. The pieces snapped together in my mind, the inconsistencies, the changes in mood, Naomi's innocent observations. Some days Naomi had been hugged by her real mother. Other days she had been comforted by a stranger who shared her mother's face. The thought broke me. I pressed my hands to my eyes, whispering, "That poor child. She's been living with two mothers without even knowing it." When I lifted my head again, Isadora was staring at me with pleading eyes. "Mrs. Jefferson, I never meant to hurt Naomi. She's a sweet little girl." But I was trapped. Vanessa held the purse strings, and I had sick parents. Please believe me, I believed her. My heart knew she wasn't the villain. But Vanessa, the woman I had welcomed into my family, into my home, had built our life on lies. And now I had to decide what to do with the truth. As I left that little house, the papers clutched to my chest. The sun seemed cruelly bright. I walked back through the alley, my legs heavy, my soul heavier. When I reached my gate, Naomi came running to greet me, her little arms wrapping tight around my waist. "Grandma, Mama made fish for supper. Come see." Her innocent joy split me in two. How could I destroy her world with what I now knew? And yet, how could I let her keep living in a web of deception? That night, I sat in my room with the adoption papers spread across the bed. My notebook lay open beside them. I traced the ink of Isidora's birth record, my tears falling onto the page. One truth was now undeniable. Vanessa and Isidora weren't just doubles. They were blood. And if Vanessa had hidden her own sister, then what else was she hiding from all of us? That night, I couldn't touch my supper. Naomi chattered at the table about school. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes as he skimmed blueprints, and Vanessa, radiant in a soft cream dress, smiled as though nothing in the world was wrong. I pushed food around my plate, my notebook burning like a brand in my apron pocket. Inside were my suspicions, my observations, and now the adoption papers that had ripped the ground out from under me. I knew the truth. Vanessa wasn't just living a double life with another man, she was living it with her own blood. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. As the meal went on, I studied her. Every smile, every glance, every word out of her mouth carried a new weight. When Naomi spilled a bit of water on the tablecloth, Vanessa laughed lightly, patting her daughter's hand. But just 3 nights earlier, Naomi had sobbed in my arms after Vanessa scolded her harshly for the same mistake. It hadn't been Vanessa that night. It had been Isidora. The realization cut me deeper than any betrayal I had ever known. My granddaughter had been raised in the arms of 2 women, thinking both were her mother, never knowing the difference. Later, when the dishes were washed and the house quiet, I slipped into my room and closed the door. I spread the papers across the bed again, the adoption certificate trembling beneath my fingers. I whispered into the silence, "Why, Vanessa? Why hide your sister? Why use her like this?" But only the ticking of the old clock answered me. The following day, Loretta stopped by with her usual boldness. She took one look at my face and didn't waste time with pleasantries. "You found something, didn't you?" she asked, setting a bag of collard greens on the counter. I nodded slowly, pulling out the papers. Her sharp eyes scanned them, her lips pursing into a hard line. "Twins?" she said flatly. "So that's her secret." My throat tightened. "Loretta, what do I do? If I bring this into the light, Marcus will break. Naomi. Lord, Naomi will never look at her mama the same." Loretta leaned forward, her voice firm but kind. "And if you keep it in the dark, Gloria, they'll live in a lie. Lies rot a house from the inside out. Better a broken truth than a pretty lie." Her words hit me like gospel. I knew she was right. That evening, when Marcus came home late from work, I almost told him everything. He was so tired, his tie loosened, his eyes dull with exhaustion. Naomi ran into his arms, and for a moment, I couldn't bear to put more weight on his shoulders. But then I saw Vanessa watching from the kitchen doorway. Her smile was too perfect, her eyes just a shade too careful. And I knew. The time was coming when this house would shatter. The next morning, I followed Vanessa again. My hands shook as I trailed her discreetly down the cobblestone streets. This time, instead of the alley, she walked into a small cafe downtown. Through the window, I saw him. Raymond Cole. He was just as Isidora had described. Tall, elegant, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Marcus earned in a month. His smile was polished, but his hand on Vanessa's arm told me what words could not. I pressed myself against the brick wall outside, my chest heaving. My daughter-in-law, the mother of my granddaughter, was laughing softly with a man who wasn't my son. I stumbled home, every step heavier than the last. My shawl clung to me, soaked with sweat. Inside, Naomi was drawing at the kitchen table. She looked up at me with her innocent smile and held out her paper. "Look, Grandma. Mama taught me how to draw a bird yesterday." I took the paper with trembling hands. The handwriting in the corner, "Good job, Naomi," was crooked, unfamiliar. Isadora's hand. My knees nearly gave out. I kissed Naomi's forehead quickly and excused myself to my room. There, I collapsed into my chair, my notebook open once more. Vanessa seen with Raymond Cole, laughing, intimate. Isadora continues to care for Naomi in her place. I stared at the words until my tears blurred them into nothing. That night, I prayed harder than I had in years. My knees pressed into the worn carpet, my hands clasped tight. Lord, show me how to protect this family. Show me how to tell the truth without destroying everything. But deep down, I knew the truth had no gentle edges. It would tear. It would cut. It would bleed. And yet, if I stayed silent, it would rot us from within. The day of reckoning arrived not with thunder, but with the clink of silverware. I had spent the afternoon cooking, my hands moving as though on autopilot. Catfish seasoned and roasting, collard greens simmering, cornbread golden in the oven. The smells filled the house, comforting, deceiving. It was the kind of meal my late husband Raphael would have called a feast. But it wasn't meant to celebrate. It was meant to reveal. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. Marcus came home first, his tie loosened, eyes weary from another long day at the firm. "Mama," he said, kissing my cheek, "this looks like a Sunday supper." "What's the occasion?" I forced a smile. "Just thought we ought to sit down together." Naomi came tumbling in next, full of laughter, her school shoes tapping against the wood floor. She ran straight to me, hugging my legs. "Grandma, is there dessert?" I kissed her head, blinking back tears. Lord, how would this child's smile survive what she was about to hear? And then Vanessa entered, radiant as always in a pale blue dress, her smile sweet as sugar. She kissed Marcus's cheek, smoothed Naomi's braids, and sat down at the table as though she hadn't been seen days ago with Raymond Cole. My heart pounded, but I kept my voice steady. We bowed our heads, blessed the food, and began to eat. At first it was ordinary. Marcus asked about Naomi's schoolwork. Naomi chattered about her art project. Vanessa laughed in all the right places. But I could feel it. The weight of my notebook hidden in the drawer behind me, the adoption papers folded in my pocket, the truth straining against my lips. Finally, I set down my fork and folded my hands on the table. "There's something we need to talk about," I said softly. The air shifted. Marcus looked up, puzzled. Naomi tilted her head. Vanessa's hand froze on her glass. I drew a breath deep enough to steady my soul. "Vanessa," I said, my voice trembling, "you haven't been honest with us." For a heartbeat, silence. Then Vanessa's eyes flashed. "What are you talking about, Mama?" I rose slowly, walked to the drawer, and pulled out the notebook. I set it on the table, pages thick with my trembling handwriting. Then I laid the adoption papers beside it. "David called me from the airport," I said, my voice gaining strength. "He saw you boarding a flight to Paris while you were here in my house. And since then, I've kept notes, your handwriting changing, your moods turning on a dime, neighbors noticing, Naomi confused. And then," I tapped the papers, "I found your sister." Marcus stiffened. "Her what?" "Her twin," I said, my voice breaking. "Isadora. She's been stepping into this house, pretending to be you. You've been living two lives, Vanessa, with your family here, and with a man named Raymond Cole. The words landed like stones hurled through glass. Naomi blinked, confused. 2 moms? She whispered. Marcus's face drained of colour. He stared at his wife, eyes wide, lips trembling. Vanessa, tell me this isn't true. Vanessa shot to her feet, her chair scraping against the floor. This is ridiculous. She's making it all up to humiliate me. But before she could say more, the front door opened. David stepped inside, his pilot's uniform crisp, his face pale but determined. And behind him stood Isadora, the same face as Vanessa, but softer, tear-stained, trembling. Naomi gasped. Mama? She looked from one woman to the other, her little voice cracking. Why are there 2 of you? Vanessa's mask shattered. She slammed her fist against the table, eyes blazing. Fine, she spat. Yes, I used her. So what? Do you think I was going to waste my life stuck here with Marcus's endless blueprints and your hand-me-down casseroles? Raymond gave me something better. Money, travel, freedom. Isadora was too pathetic to refuse me. She needed the cash, so she played along. Everyone got what they wanted. Her words cut through me like blades. Marcus staggered to his feet, fists clenched, his voice trembling. You've been lying to me. To Naomi. All this time? Vanessa sneered. You were never enough for me, Marcus. You'll never be enough. Raymond is a real man, not some small-time architect scratching for pennies. Naomi burst into tears, burying her face in my skirt. I wrapped my arms around her as my own tears fell freely. Isadora stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. Sister, you didn't have to hurt them like this. I only ever wanted to help. I never knew it would destroy them. Vanessa's glare shot like fire across the room. Stay out of this. You're nothing but a shadow. You wouldn't even exist if it weren't for me. But Marcus cut her off, his voice sharp with fury and pain. That's enough, Vanessa. Pack your things and get out. You'll never step foot in this house again. Vanessa's face hardened, her eyes cold as stone. She turned without another word, grabbed her purse, and stormed out. The door slammed so hard the windows rattled. And just like that, the house fell into silence, broken only by Naomi's sobs. I gathered my granddaughter close, rocking her as though she were still a baby. My tears wet her hair as I whispered, Hush now, baby. Grandma's here. I've got you. But inside, my heart broke wide open. Because I knew Naomi's world, Marcus's world, my world, would never be the same again. The house felt like a funeral after Vanessa's footsteps faded into the night. The air was heavy, suffocating, as though even the walls knew what had just been lost. Naomi's cries echoed in the silence, sharp and unrelenting. I held her close, rocking her in my arms, whispering every lullaby I still remembered from my own motherhood. My voice cracked on every verse, but I sang anyway, because children deserved comfort, even when comfort was built on ruins. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. Marcus sat at the table, his head in his hands, shoulders trembling. I had never seen my son so undone, not when his father passed, not when money was tight and he nearly lost his first job. This was different. This was the look of a man who had given his whole heart and had it stomped into the ground. David stood quietly near the doorway, his pilot's cap tucked under his arm. He looked like a soldier who'd just carried bad news to a battlefield, uncertain whether to stay or retreat. Isadora lingered near the kitchen counter, her face pale, her eyes glistening with guilt. She looked so much like Vanessa that every glance at her made Marcus flinch. Yet she stayed, because maybe she too needed to see the full measure of what their deception had wrought. Naomi hiccuped against my shoulder, lifting her tear-stained face. "Grandma," she whispered, "why does Mama have another face? Why did she say mean things tonight?" My throat closed. How do you explain betrayal to a child who still believes monsters only live under the bed? I kissed her forehead, pressing her little hand in mine. "Baby girl, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes so big that they hurt the people they love. But you didn't do anything wrong. You're still loved, more than you'll ever know." Her lip trembled. "But which Mama is mine? The one who hugs me? Or the one who yells?" Tears blurred my vision. "Both, baby. Both of them cared for you, but only one will stay, and Grandma promises you this. I won't let you go without love. Not ever." She buried her face in my chest, clinging tight. Across the table, Marcus finally lifted his head. His eyes were red, swollen, empty. "Mama," he croaked. "How do I tell Naomi her mother isn't coming back? How do I tell myself that?" I wanted to give him an answer, but all I had were tears. I took his hand across the table, squeezed it tight, and whispered, "You'll tell her by showing up every day, by loving her more fiercely than you ever thought you could. And when you can't, I'll be here. Between the two of us, she will never feel alone." He nodded weakly, but his shoulders slumped as though the weight of the world had pinned him to his chair. Isadora finally spoke, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I was helping her. But I see now I was helping her lie." Marcus's eyes hardened, though his voice stayed low. "Every time Naomi thought her mother was singing to her, it was you." Isadora lowered her head, tears spilling onto the floor. "Yes, but I sang because she asked me to, not because I wanted to fool a child. I swear to you, I never wanted to hurt her." David stepped forward, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "She's telling the truth." Vanessa was the one pulling strings. Isadora was desperate, and Vanessa used that desperation. Marcus turned away, unable to look at either of them. Later that night, I tucked Naomi into bed myself. She clutched her teddy bear with white knuckles, her eyes wide in the dark. "Grandma?" she whispered. "Will Mama come back?" I brushed her hair gently. "Not the way she was, baby. But you have me. You have your daddy. You have Uncle David. You'll never be without love." Her small voice cracked. "I just want the nice Mama, not the mean one." I kissed her forehead again, whispering through tears. "So do I, baby. So do I." She drifted into uneasy sleep, her little chest rising and falling against the covers. I sat by her side long after, stroking her hair, promising myself I'd guard her innocence with everything I had left. When I finally returned to the kitchen, Marcus was gone upstairs. David lingered, silent. Isadora still sat at the table, her face streaked with tears. "Mrs. Jefferson," she said softly, "let me help. Let me try to make things right, even if I can't undo the past." I studied her, the same face that had deceived me, but with eyes that carried shame instead of arrogance. "Then help Naomi," I said. "If you're going to stay in this story, let it be with honesty, not secrets." She nodded, her tears falling fast. As the house finally grew quiet, I sat with my notebook open again, my pen scratched across the page. Tonight, the truth came out. Naomi's world is broken. Marcus is broken. I am broken. But maybe, just maybe, Isadora's remorse can become the thread that mends us. I closed the notebook, pressed it to my chest, and whispered into the silence, "Lord, help me turn this rubble into a foundation. For Naomi. For Marcus. For what's left of us. The days after Vanessa left were thick with silence. Not the peaceful kind that comes when the house rests after supper, but the suffocating quiet of a wound that refuses to close. Every sound, the creak of the stairs, the slam of a door, even Naomi's soft laughter, echoed differently, as though the walls themselves knew something was missing. Marcus moved through the house like a ghost. He went to work, he came home, he sat at the table without eating. His hands were steady enough to draw blueprints, but his eyes were hollow. Naomi clung to me more than ever, asking questions in her small, careful voice. Where's Mama now? Will she call? Why doesn't she want me anymore? And I answered as gently as I could, though my heart cracked each time. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. One evening, after Naomi had gone to bed, Marcus and I sat at the kitchen table, a single lamp throwing shadows across our tired faces. The divorce papers lay between us. She didn't even fight it, Marcus whispered, staring at the stack of papers as though they were foreign. She signed them without looking at me. Without looking at Naomi, I reached for his hand, but he pulled away, gripping his head instead. How do I raise my daughter after this, Mama? How do I tell her the woman she called Mama is gone because she chose another man? How do I tell her the woman who tucked her in some nights wasn't even her real mother? His voice broke, and my tears spilled with his. Isadora had been quiet these past few days. She stayed in the background, helping with Naomi's homework, bringing food, tidying small corners of the house, as though trying to atone for sins she never meant to commit. But Marcus avoided her. Every time his eyes caught hers, pain flared in his face. She looked so much like Vanessa that forgiveness felt like betrayal. Yet Naomi didn't flinch. One afternoon, I found her curled against Isadora on the porch, showing her drawings, laughing softly. "Auntie Dora," she called her, innocent as only a child could be. It struck me then. Naomi had already chosen. That night, I spoke to Marcus again. "Son, I know it cuts deep to see her face, but Naomi, she finds comfort in Isadora. She doesn't see betrayal. She just sees someone who stayed." Marcus's jaw tightened. Stayed because she had no choice. I shook my head. No, Marcus. She could have run after Vanessa or hidden in shame, but she's here. She's here when Vanessa is not. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he pushed the papers toward me. "Mama, you raised me to believe in vows. And now I've got to raise my daughter in the ruins of broken ones. If you think keeping Isadora near will help Naomi, then I won't stand in the way. But I can't see her as anything but a reminder of the woman who destroyed me." His words cut me, but I understood. Healing wasn't a light switch. It was a slow climb through thorns. A week later, the courthouse echoed with footsteps. Marcus came home afterward, his face pale but dry. "It's done," he said simply. I touched his arm gently. "And Naomi?" She asked where Mama was. I told her she went away. I couldn't tell her more. His shoulders slumped, but his voice steadied. "Mama, I'll be enough for her." "I have to be." I nodded, pride and sorrow tangled together in my chest. That night, as Naomi slept, I sat on the porch with Isadora. The air was cool, the crickets loud in the dark. "Mrs. Jefferson?" she said softly, her voice heavy with guilt. "I don't expect forgiveness. But if you'll let me, I'll stand by Naomi. I'll help raise her in whatever way you allow. I don't want her to carry the weight of my mistake." I studied her face. The same features as Vanessa, yet softened by humility, streaked with tears. You're not her mistake, I said gently. You're her second chance. Isadora broke down then, sobbing quietly, her shoulders shaking. I reached out and held her, the way I'd held Naomi, the way I'd once held Marcus when he was a boy. And in that moment, I knew. The hard choice wasn't whether to cut Isadora out. The hard choice was learning to see her not as a shadow of Vanessa, but as herself. Time moves differently after a storm. Days no longer march with certainty. They limp, they stagger, but eventually they steady. That was how life felt in the weeks after Vanessa left. Fragile, unsteady, but moving forward whether we were ready or not. The mornings were the hardest. Naomi would wake and ask in her soft, sleepy voice, "Is Mama here today?" Each time, Marcus's shoulders stiffened, and I would gather her close before he had to answer. "No, baby," I'd whisper, "but Grandma's here, Daddy's here, and you're never alone." Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. Marcus poured himself into his work, but I could see the cracks. His once bright eyes had dimmed, his laughter vanished. Yet every evening, no matter how tired, he sat with Naomi at the table, helping her spell out words or check her sums. He showed her, word by word, that she hadn't lost both parents. David visited more often, his pilot's cap tucked under his arm, bringing little trinkets from the cities he flew through, a snow globe from Denver, a keychain from Paris. Naomi clutched each one as though it were treasure, and in her smile I saw the healing begin. And then there was Isadora. At first, Marcus could barely look at her. Every line of her face reminded him of betrayal. But Naomi had already given her a name, Auntie Dora. And children have a way of softening hearts where reason fails. One afternoon, I watched from the porch as Naomi tugged Isadora's hand, pulling her toward the garden. "Draw with me, Auntie Dora," she said, thrusting a box of crayons into her lap. Isadora knelt, her laughter uncertain but real, sketching clumsy flowers and crooked suns. Naomi giggled, correcting her lines, and leaned against her shoulder as though it were the most natural place in the world. When Marcus came home that evening, he froze at the sight. His jaw clenched. But instead of walking away, he stood in the doorway, watching. For the first time, I saw something shift. Not forgiveness, not yet. But the faintest crack in the wall around his heart. A month passed. The divorce was final, and Vanessa never returned, not even to ask about Naomi. The silence of her absence was its own answer. Marcus said little about it, but late one night, as we sat together on the porch, he finally spoke. "She didn't just leave me, Mama. She left Naomi. That's worse than anything she did to me." I placed my hand over his. "And yet, look at your daughter. She laughs. She draws. She sleeps in peace again. That's because you stayed. That's because we stayed." His eyes glistened, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a flicker of life return to them. It was Naomi, in her innocent way, who sealed what I had already begun to see. One evening, as Isadora read a bedtime story, Naomi laid her head against her lap and said softly, "I'm glad you're here. You don't have to be Mama. You can just be you." Isadora broke down, tears spilling over the pages. She kissed the top of Naomi's head, whispering, "Thank you, baby girl. That's more than I deserve." And from that moment on, she wasn't just Vanessa's shadow. She was Isadora, flawed, repentant, but real. Life didn't become perfect. There were still nights when Marcus sat staring at the walls, still mornings when Naomi asked questions too heavy for her age, still moments when I felt the weight of it all pressing down on my shoulders. But slowly, laughter returned to the house. Naomi's drawings filled the fridge again. Marcus smiled, even if faintly. David whistled when he came through the door. And I, Gloria Jefferson, widow, mother, grandmother, secret keeper and truth-teller, realized something my husband Raphael had once told me before he passed. The truth will set you free, Gloria. But first, it will break you. He was right. The truth had broken us. It shattered illusions, stripped us bare, and left scars we would carry for the rest of our lives. But it also freed us. Freed Naomi from confusion. Freed Marcus from lies. Freed Isadora from being used as a pawn. Freed me from the prison of silence. One night, long after the dishes were washed and Naomi was asleep, I sat alone on the porch, the cool desert wind brushing my face. I could hear faint laughter from inside. Naomi's little giggle mingled with Isadora's gentle hum as she put away toys. I closed my eyes and smiled, tears slipping quietly down my cheeks. Yes, we had lost much. Yes, betrayal had scarred us. But out of the rubble, something new had been built, fragile, imperfect, but real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. 3 years have passed since that night when truth ripped through my house like a tornado. 3 years since Naomi wept into my skirt, since Marcus signed the divorce papers, since Vanessa slammed the door and chose a different life. The wounds have not vanished. They never do. But scars, I've learned, can be beautiful too. Proof of survival. Proof that we lived through something meant to break us. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. Naomi is 11 now, taller, brighter, her gap-toothed smile replaced by the confident grin of a girl who knows she is loved. She still asks about her mother sometimes, but not with pain anymore. One evening, she sat beside me on the porch, her sketchbook balanced on her knees. She was drawing birds again, only now they soared, wings stretched wide, free across the page. "Grandma?" she said softly. "I don't hate Mama. I just don't need her anymore." I looked at her, my eyes filling with tears. She had grown strong in ways most children her age never had to. And though it broke me that she had to learn resilience so young, I was proud beyond words. Marcus has rebuilt too. The lines on his face have deepened, but the emptiness has eased. He no longer moves like a ghost. Work keeps him busy, and Naomi keeps him grounded. There was a time when he couldn't even look at Isadora without bitterness, but time and her quiet consistency wore down those walls. She never forced herself into his life. She only showed up, for Naomi, for me, for the small needs of the house. And one day, I noticed Marcus laugh at something she said. Not the hollow laugh of politeness, but a real, startled laugh that caught him off guard. It was a small sound, but to me, it was the clearest sign yet. Life was coming back. As for Isadora, she is no longer just a shadow of Vanessa. She is herself. She found steady work at the local library, her love for books blossoming into a role where children run to her for story hour. Naomi often insists on helping her shelve books, beaming with pride as she calls, "That's my Auntie Dora." The shame that once weighed her down has lifted little by little. She still cries sometimes, still whispers apologies when old wounds ache. But now, those apologies are met with forgiveness instead of suspicion. She is no longer a replacement. She is family. David still flies the skies, but he makes sure to land home more often. Naomi looks at him like a hero, and he spoils her with trinkets from every city he visits. He never lets her forget that adventure exists beyond the edges of Phoenix. And I have grown older, slower, but my heart has steadied. I sit on the porch most evenings, watching the desert sun set in waves of gold and crimson, listening to Naomi's laughter, Marcus's steady voice, and Isidora's soft humming. The storm that once threatened to destroy us has passed. Its memory remains, but so does the proof that we survived it. Sometimes I think of Vanessa. I wonder if she ever regrets, if she ever looks back at what she abandoned. But I no longer let bitterness live in my chest. She made her choice, and in the ashes of that choice, my family found a new way to live. Naomi is happy. Marcus is healing. Isidora is free. David is steady. And I, Gloria Jefferson, have kept my promise to hold this family together, no matter how broken the pieces. The truth did break us, but it also rebuilt us, stronger and more honest than before. And as I sit here now, with the sound of Naomi's laughter carrying through the night air, I know one thing for certain. We are not defined by the storms that strike us, but by the love we use to rebuild after they pass.